Do you know what actually happens when a woman starts pulling away from you? Not what you think is happening, not what your anxiety is telling you, but what's really going on in her mind when she goes cold, when she stops reaching out, when she suddenly seems like a completely different person than the one you were connecting with just days ago. Because while you're sitting there replaying conversations, analyzing her last text, wondering if you said something wrong, something completely different is happening, something most men never see, and your reaction to her distance is revealing everything about the dynamic between you two. The brutal reality is that most men misread this situation entirely. They think the relationship is falling apart when something else is actually playing out. This video is going to show you exactly what's really happening beneath the surface, why she does this, and how to respond in a way that makes you unforgettable instead of forgettable. -E? Now, before you think this is about playing mind games or being manipulative, let me be clear. This isn't about punishing her, ignoring her out of spite, or treating her poorly. That's not what this is. This is about understanding the psychological dynamics that most men are completely blind to, dynamics that determine who holds the frame in a relationship. Here's the truth that nobody tells you. Relationships have invisible power structures, and most men lose in these dynamics not because they're bad people, but because they don't even know the game is being played. They react emotionally, they chase validation, and they give away their power without even realizing it. So let's go deeper. Because once you understand what's actually happening when she pulls away, you'll never misread these situations again. The problem most men face is that they confuse emotional investment with neediness. They think caring about someone means they've given that person power over them. And because they don't want to seem desperate or weak, they either overcorrect by acting cold and distant, or they double down by chasing even harder. Both are losing strategies. But here's what most men don't understand. It's not about how much you care. It's about whether you need her validation to feel secure in your own value. Ask yourself this: when she pulls back, do you immediately start questioning yourself? Do you replay conversations looking for what you did wrong? Do you check your phone constantly hoping she's texted back? If that's you, then you're playing from a position of reaction, not strength. And she can feel that. Here's why this happens. When a man doesn't have a solid internal frame, when his sense of worth is tied to how a woman responds to him, he becomes dependent on her validation. And the moment that happens, the power dynamic shifts, because now he's the one who needs something from her. He needs her attention to feel valued. He needs her responsiveness to feel secure. And she can sense that dependency, even if he's trying to hide it. Most men respond to her distance in one of two ways. They either chase harder, texting more, trying to fix things, explaining themselves, seeking reassurance, or they pull back out of hurt pride, thinking that withdrawing will somehow restore their power. But here's the truth. Both reactions come from the same place of insecurity. Both are attempts to control her response because they can't handle the uncertainty. And that's exactly what reveals they don't have the frame. A man with real power doesn't need to control her behavior because he's not shaken by it. So here's what I'm going to show you in the next 5 sections. First, the invisible neediness test she's running and why she doesn't even realize she's doing it. Second, the 3 power signals that reveal who controls the frame in any relationship. Third, why her pulling away is actually a sign of her investment, not the opposite. Fourth, the exact response pattern that makes you unforgettable instead of forgettable. And fifth, the ultimate power principle that once you understand it, changes your entire approach to relationships. By the end of this video, you'll never misread relationship power dynamics again. You'll understand exactly when you have the power, when she does, and how to keep it without playing games. Let's break it down. -E. First, the invisible neediness test. Here's what this is. When a woman pulls back, goes cold, or creates distance in a relationship, she's watching to see how you'll react. And this isn't some conscious manipulation. Most women don't even realize they're doing it. It's a subconscious assessment of your frame strength. She's checking if you're grounded in your own value or if you need her validation to feel secure. This is where most men completely ruin everything. They either panic and chase, sending multiple texts, asking what's wrong, trying to fix whatever they think they did, or they pull back out of hurt pride, thinking that withdrawing will somehow regain their power. But here's what you need to understand. Both reactions are failing the test, because both come from the same place of insecurity. Both say, "I can't handle you being uncertain about me." Here's the psychology behind it. When you react emotionally to her distance, whether by chasing or withdrawing defensively, you're proving that your emotional state depends on how she treats you. You're showing that you're not grounded. And the moment she sees that, the power dynamic shifts. Because now she knows. You need something from her. You need her attention, her responsiveness, her validation. And that dependency, even if you're trying to hide it, that's what kills attraction. But here's what happens when you don't collapse. When she goes cold and you stay calm, composed, and secure in your own value, when you give her space without punishing her or chasing her, suddenly something shifts in her mind. She realizes you're not like other men. You're not emotionally dependent on her responses. You have your own stability. And that's when the test turns into attraction. Because now she's thinking, wait, is he really that grounded? Is he actually okay without me validating him? And that uncertainty, that curiosity, that's what makes her invest more. Here's a real-world example. Let's say she cancels plans last minute. Most guys either spiral, "Did I do something wrong? Is she losing interest?" Or they get defensive. "Fine, I didn't want to hang out anyway." Both reactions show weakness. Instead, you respond with, "No problem, catch you another time." That's it. No explaining, no seeking reassurance, no passive-aggressive punishment. Just calm acceptance. And when she reaches back out, which she almost always does if she was testing you, she's doing it with more respect because you passed. That's the invisible neediness test. And the way you respond determines who has the power going forward. But here's where it gets even deeper. And this is where most men completely miss what's happening. The 3 power signals that reveal who controls the frame. These are the observable behaviors that show, in any relationship dynamic, who has the real power. And if you're paying attention, you can see these playing out in every interaction. Signal number 1, who initiates and who responds. This is the action versus reaction dynamic. The person who's always initiating, always texting first, always suggesting plans, always reaching out, that's the person who's chasing. And the person who responds, who lets the other person come to them, that's the person who holds the power. Now, this doesn't mean you should never initiate. But if you're always the one initiating, if there's no reciprocation, that imbalance reveals everything about the power structure. Signal number 2, who maintains emotional composure when there's tension or conflict? When things get uncomfortable, when there's a disagreement, when she's upset, the person who stays calm, who doesn't get defensive, who doesn't need to immediately fix the situation to feel okay again. That's the person with the frame. Because staying grounded when emotions are high, that takes real internal stability. Most men lose their composure the moment she's upset. They either get defensive or they start scrambling to make her feel better because they can't handle her being unhappy with them. And that reaction reveals dependency. Signal number 3, who's willing to walk away from poor treatment? This is the ultimate power signal. If you tolerate disrespect, if you accept breadcrumbs, if you stay in a dynamic where your needs aren't being met because you're afraid of losing her, that's the clearest sign that you don't have the power. The man who knows his worth will walk away from anything that doesn't align with his standards. And that willingness to walk away, not out of ego or punishment, but out of genuine self-respect, that's what creates real attraction. Because she knows you're not desperate. She knows you have options. She knows that if she doesn't treat you right, you're gone. Here's the principle. Frame control isn't about dominating someone or playing power games. It's about being unshakable in your own value. It's about not needing her approval to feel secure. And when you embody that, when you demonstrate these three signals consistently, you're not just attractive, you're unforgettable. Because most men don't have this. Most men collapse under pressure, chase validation, and accept poor treatment. And the moment you stop being like most men, everything changes. Now, this brings us to something that might surprise you, and it completely flips the script on what you think is happening when she pulls away. Why her pulling away actually proves her investment. This is the perspective flip that most men never see. They think when she goes cold or distant, it means she's losing interest. But here's the truth. Women only test men they're actually invested in. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't bother. She'd just disappear. The fact that she's creating distance, that she's testing you, that's proof she's still engaged. Think about it. Testing requires energy. It requires care. If you meant nothing to her, if she was genuinely done, she wouldn't waste time playing games or pulling back to see how you'd react. She'd just move on. But when a woman is invested, when she's trying to figure out if you're actually the man she thinks you are, that's when she tests. She needs to know, are you stable enough to handle her uncertainty? Are you grounded enough that you won't collapse when she's not giving you constant validation? This is the hidden need behind the test. She needs to know you're safe. Not safe in the sense that you're harmless, but safe in the sense that you're solid. That you won't fall apart emotionally when things aren't perfect. That you can hold the space when she's going through her own internal chaos. And the only way she can assess that is by pulling back and seeing if you remain steady or if you panic. So when she goes distant, when her texts get shorter, when she cancels plans, most men read this as rejection and either pull back defensively or chase harder out of anxiety. But that's the wrong read. She's not necessarily losing interest. She's watching to see if you understand the game. She's waiting to see if you'll prove you're different from the men who crumble under pressure. Here's what this means for you. When she pulls back, instead of seeing it as a threat, see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to demonstrate that you're not shaken by her uncertainty. That you have your own stability independent of her mood. That you're grounded in your value whether she's warm or cold. And when you respond from that place, when you give her space without resentment, when you maintain your composure without needing to control her behavior, that's when you pass the test. That's when she realizes you're actually who she hoped you were. The power truth here is this. If she's testing you, she's still in. She's still invested. She hasn't written you off. And that test, as annoying as it might feel, is actually her way of trying to confirm that you're worth her continued investment. So the question isn't, is she losing interest? The real question is, am I going to pass this test or fail it? And that brings us to the exact response pattern that makes you unforgettable. Because knowing she's testing you is one thing. Knowing how to respond, that's what separates men who win from men who lose. The exact response pattern that makes you unforgettable. This is the practical framework you can apply immediately. And it comes down to 3 simple steps. Match investment, maintain standards, and don't collapse or overreact. Step 1, match investment. When she pulls back, you give her space. Not as punishment, not with resentment, but with calm acceptance. You mirror her energy level without being reactive about it. If she's texting less, you text less. If she's creating distance, you let her have that distance. You're not chasing to close the gap, and you're not withdrawing out of hurt. You're simply matching where she is. And this does 2 things. It shows you're not desperate for her attention, and it gives her room to realize she misses your presence. Step 2. Maintain your life, your energy, your purpose. This is critical. You don't sit around waiting for her to come back. You don't check your phone every 5 minutes hoping she's texted. You continue living your life at full intensity. You work on your goals, you spend time with friends, you stay busy with things that actually matter to you, because here's what most men don't understand. Your value doesn't come from her attention. It comes from how you show up in your own life. And when she sees, or even just senses, that you're thriving regardless of whether she's engaged or distant, that creates attraction because it proves you're not dependent on her for your emotional stability. Step 3. When she re-engages, and she usually does if she was testing you respond calmly, without neediness and without resentment. You don't punish her for pulling away. You don't make her explain herself. You don't passive-aggressively bring it up to make her feel guilty. You just pick up where things left off, as if her distance didn't shake you. And that composure, that lack of emotional volatility, that's what makes you unforgettable. Because she realizes you're not like other men who either chase desperately or withdraw out of wounded pride. You're grounded, you're secure, and that security is magnetic. Here's what this looks like in practice. She goes cold for a few days. You don't panic. You don't send multiple texts asking if everything's okay. You just continue your life. Maybe you text her once, something casual, no neediness, and then you leave it. If she doesn't respond, you're genuinely okay with that. And when she does reach back out, you respond with the same energy you always have. No interrogation, no drama, just calm, confident engagement. And in her mind, she's thinking, wait, he's really that solid. He didn't fall apart. He didn't chase me. He just stayed himself. And that realization is what makes her invest more. The power move here is understanding that your composed response is the ultimate demonstration of value. You're showing, not telling, that you know your worth. And that's what flips the dynamic from you needing her validation to her seeking yours. And that leads us to the ultimate principle. The one thing that, once you understand it, changes your entire approach to relationships. The ultimate power principle. Whoever needs the relationship less has more power. But here's the nuance. It's not about not caring. It's about being fully invested while not being dependent on the outcome. This is the paradox. Most men think power means being detached. So they either pretend not to care, which comes across as fake, or they genuinely don't invest, which makes the relationship shallow. But real power is high investment combined with low need for validation. You can care deeply about her. You can want the relationship. But if your emotional stability depends on how she responds to you, that's when you lose power. Because now, you need her to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. And that dependency kills attraction. But when you're invested without being dependent, when you care but you're okay if things don't work out, that's real power. You're coming from abundance, not scarcity. I want you in my life, but I don't need you to validate me. I'm whole with or without you. Most men make two mistakes: overinvest and become needy, seeking reassurance, afraid to lose her, or underinvest and stay distant, walls up, never showing up. The needy guy has no power. The distant guy has no depth. Both fail. The man who wins shows up fully, invests deeply, but maintains his standards and willingness to walk away. He's not afraid to lose her, but not indifferent either. He wants her, but doesn't need her approval to feel valuable. Here's the real-world application. When she knows you want her, but she also knows you don't need her, when she understands that you're choosing her, not clinging to her out of fear, she feels both desired and challenged. She knows you're invested, so she feels valued, but she also knows you're not desperate, so she feels the need to step up and invest back. And that dynamic, where she's chasing your continued investment instead of you chasing hers, that's when the power shifts. The truth is, she needs you more than you need her, but only when you genuinely don't need her. The moment you become dependent on her validation, the power reverses. And that's the ultimate principle. Your power comes from being unshakable in your own worth, fully present in the relationship, and completely okay with walking away if necessary. Now, here's where I need to tell you something uncomfortable, something most relationship advice won't say. Here's the truth that might sting. And I need to be blunt with you because this is what separates men who actually change from men who just consume content and stay stuck. Most men will never get this, not because they don't understand it. You can understand every word and still fail. They won't get this because they're too terrified of losing her to actually be the man she can't afford to lose. They'll watch this, nod along, maybe take notes, then go right back to chasing, explaining, trying to convince her of their value. Because actually walking away from disrespect, actually being okay with losing her, that takes courage most men don't have. And that's why they stay stuck forever. If you're afraid to lose her, you've already positioned yourself as less valuable. And she can feel that fear. It repels her. Now, I know how this sounds. It sounds harsh, maybe even cold, but this isn't about not caring or being emotionally unavailable. This is about self-respect. You can care deeply about her while still maintaining standards. In fact, that's the only version of you she can truly respect. A man who tolerates poor treatment out of fear of being alone isn't attractive. He's desperate. And desperation, no matter how much you try to hide it, always shows. So ask yourself, are you more afraid of losing her or losing yourself trying to keep someone who doesn't see your value? Because the moment you prioritize your self-respect over her approval, everything shifts. You stop being the guy hoping she'll choose you. You become the guy she's hoping chooses her, and that shift alone changes the entire dynamic. Now I want to hear from you. Have you been in a situation where you felt like you needed her more than she needed you? What did you do? Did you chase, pull back, or stay grounded? How did it play out? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely interested in your experience. This isn't just me talking at you. This is a conversation, because this channel isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about helping men understand the psychological dynamics that have been invisible to them. It's about giving you the clarity and the tools to show up with strength, self-respect, and confidence in your relationships. We're building a community of men who refuse to settle for being the desperate option, who understand their worth and who won't compromise their self-respect for anyone. Remember, you're not the guy hoping she'll notice you. You're a man of value who's deciding whether she deserves your continued investment. And when you truly embody that mindset, when you stop needing her validation and start knowing your worth, you become the man she can't afford to lose. That's real power. And that's what makes you unforgettable.